Welcome to Intelligent Human Leadership, leading yourself and your team. Do you ever find yourself grappling with a lack of confidence in your team? Or battling the relentless waves of concern and fear? Are the pressures to meet client expectations and the burden of missed opportunities weighing you down? On this podcast, you'll discover the strategies and insights that will reignite your team's morale and help you find the harmony and knowledge you seek to propel your business forward. Here, we explore innovative ways to reignite your creative spirit and achieve greatness, empowering you to lead with intelligence, compassion, and resilience. If you're ready to dive deep into your core of leadership challenges and be guided toward success, here's your host, founder of Steward Your Business, David Carr.
Welcome back to the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. Thank you for all of you that listened in my last episode, the story that I shared about being present, about going to the concert with my sister. And if you missed that episode, go back, check it out. I had so much great feedback and on this particular podcast that I wanted to go into a little bit more story mode with you today as well, and sharing some of my challenges and journey in building resilience when what I call the gap. When things aren't working, things aren't going the way that you wanted to, there's a way of thinking and looking at things. And if you haven't read the book 10x is easier than 2x, it's in there. And there's actually a whole other book called The Gap and the Gain. But, how do we stay engaged when we've shown up, we've done the work, things aren't clicking? And on today's episode, I'm just going to get real with you. I'm going to share some experiences, my resilience as a leader. And when you're in the messy middle and the breakthrough hasn't come, momentum has stalled, you're tempted to quit, give up, and how I want to encourage you to focus on the gain about where you're going versus getting stuck in the gap. So we're going to unpack this today on the episode of the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. I am so grateful you're here. For those of you who are liking and subscribing and commenting, thank you. I appreciate you guys being on the journey with me. We face a lot of obstacles, challenges, both externally. You hear me talk about this in the podcast. External challenges, things are outside of us, things inside of us, and how do we approach them? The deeper kind of philosophical questions that we face in life. And so the reality is there is always a gap. Now, the majority of us look at the gap. We look at the things we didn't accomplish. It's the space about where we're at and where we want to be. We all have it at some level, some point. Many people, whether you're a leader, business owner, whatever the case might be, live in that gap between the effort and the outcome. And they show up, disconnected. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. And so what I want to help you on this podcast today is to start to plant the seed to help you see the perspective of the secret to resilience really is looking and shifting the focus on the gain, where I'm going, the progress that I've made, the lessons that I've learned, and the strength that I built along the way. Unfortunately, a lot of our world looks at the gap. We look at the loss. We look at what the things are that behind us. Oh, we didn't get there. And so we're always in a deficit mode. And that is not healthy. It's not healthy for us individually. It's not healthy for us in the way we show up in relationships. And so when we look at that and stay in that place, we're not the healthiest leader. And what I'm all about here in the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast and Steward Your Business is to build you up and to create a space for you to come and be renewed in your mind, in your heart, and that you make the progress and the impact and the influence in your life that you could never have otherwise. I want to provide that as a resource to you. Look at around our lives, our daily lives. There are tractions. We're not making traction, for example, in our business despite consistent action. This happens a lot in social media. I've learned it. I'm doing all these busy things, right? And I'm not achieving the results. Maybe the team isn't responding. the team isn't, acting the way that you'd hoped to rise up. There might be delayed wins, financial, things that are being held back. Maybe you haven't been paid in a while. Maybe you're, haven't got that proposal. You haven't won that work, right? We all face rejection, resistance. There's outside voices that question our strategy. So there's a lot of things outside of us that cause us to lack certainty, clarity, affect our commitment to what we're following through. And so what I want to do here in the podcast is to help you consider, how are you measuring yourself? Are you measuring yourself by what you haven't achieved? Or are you measuring yourself by what you have achieved? Oftentimes we're looking at what we haven't done. And in fact, a lot of people put that upon us. I know I get that. One thing I've had to learn is just because somebody else has that, I have to recognize where have I achieved. How many of you guys have gone into some kind of review, performance review or otherwise, and you can be hit if you're not prepared with a lot of, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't achieve this, you didn't make it, And I had to learn to be proactive in my own self of being an advocate for myself about where have I achieved some things. Now, it is important to look and make, a mark of like, hey, I wanted to go here and here's where I'm at. Now, we may not have achieved the full breadth of it all, but we made some progress along the way. And it's important to celebrate wins. I've talked about this in other past podcast episodes about celebrating wins. And I want to help you see about changing your mindset. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is something I've worked on for years. I had, for example, I've been married almost 20 years coming up this July, which I'm very thankful for. But I faced at one point in particular, it was really bad, of this resistance. I had negative thoughts about where I thought the marriage should be, and it wasn't in the place. And I had resentment, frustration, and then I realized, I'm only half of this, and I have to take responsibility for how I'm showing up. What are the things I'm doing to improve myself? Now, this was years ago, but it started me in this journey of personal development, because I could be angry and frustrated with somebody else, but I can't make them change these external things that are going along with us. But I can change myself. I can focus on my mindset and pivoting that. This is a big one. These external challenges to us, and oftentimes it revolves people, circumstances that are literally beyond our control. Now, if we start to change the story, and that's why I love the Stack tool as one of those tools in the Warrior app I bring in there, but start to pivot it, we can actually then look at the gain about where we're going. And I'm going to get a little bit more into it in the podcast here about some of these things, about looking at them, because there are, these external things, but there's also the internal things that we face, the kind of the emotional cost of looking at the gap, not just the external things that don't match up, but there's doubt that we have to come, anxiety. Is this ever going to work out? We look at comparison, and comparison is really challenging when we look at others and how they're succeeding or whatever they're accomplishing. We may feel isolated or alone. I'm getting a thumbs up there on the video, that, you're trying so hard and nobody sees you. How many of you felt that way, where you're like, man, it's a victim? And I've been there. Woe is me. Nobody appreciates me. I'm doing all this work. I should be recognized more. It could be even worse than that, where you have shame or guilt for not being along further. Shame and guilt oftentimes hold us up. I had a conversation the other day with a gentleman, and he wasn't happy with where his life was. Dealing with sedation, whether it be drugs. Drugs are kind of the extreme. Not to say extreme. And nowadays we have marijuana. We have other things that you can legally do. You can drink alcohol. There's lots of different ways that we can get distracted in feeling guilt and shame because we didn't make the further moves that we needed to. However, I want to encourage you to remember a moment where you considered giving up, but you chose to stay committed. Now, again, as one that has been married for 20 years, I would not be honest with you if I didn't feel at some point I wanted to give up, or I felt like there was a challenge there. Because in the moment, the intensity of the relationship can be overwhelming, and you're like, I don't know how I can carry on. However, I knew that was a moment, and I was focusing on the gap and not the gain of what it could be, how I could be a better whole person if I persevered here. And I can tell you today, I'm in a better, stronger place emotionally, mentally, I would say even, hopefully even a little physically, in showing up for my wife in our marriage, for example, or for showing up for my children. Now, it's harder to give up on our children because that, but unfortunately, you see more people giving up on marriages than they do their children. And you're the person that made this commitment, and you're not living out the commitment. Commitment is easy when you're just starting out, but the commitment of staying the course when it really gets tough. I think I really have appreciation for those that put themselves through intense physical experiences. I've known some people that are ultra marathon runners, 50, 100 milers. I haven't done any of that, but it doesn't have to be 50 miles because that might be intense for somebody. For somebody else, a mile could be super intense. It doesn't matter the length per se. It's about how it pushes you into a place of resilience and staying the course, seeing that you're going to be better off, and that gain versus, I'm losing. I'm if I don't do this. And so we've had to shift from despair to determination. Now, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. I have not found this to be the case. There's some people that are very determined and but they need other people to come alongside them. We are built for community and connection, and that's what I create in Steward Your Business, as a place for individuals, not just businesses. I work with businesses, but also individuals to come together to run the race together, to go further together. That has been key. Because here's the thing. How do we redefine success in the long game here? What is success to you? What's the specific outcome? Who are you becoming in pursuit of that? Because that's important when you're looking at the gain. Yeah. In this book, 10x is easier than 2x. If you haven't got a chance to read it, go check it out. It's a great book. But one of the things is, to get to that 10x, to get to that true gain, we have to leave some things, a majority of things, honestly, that we're doing, 80%-ish, let's just say, to get to that gain. But it's easier to leave that behind when we know the plus side, the upside, right? Or at least can see that. Maybe we're getting closer to it, right? We're moving in that direction. How would we show up if results were delayed indefinitely? We don't know, but we know that vision is where we want to go, and that keeps us in resilience. That keeps us moving toward there. I actually have a men's event coming up here. For those of you who catch this podcast here in Southern California, we're going to do one called Grow Your Vision, coming up here on April 17th in Riverside. You guys can check it out. Just go to Eventbrite and sign up there this is for men that want to grow their vision, that want to help come together. We're doing a special one-day experience, immersive experience, because I know that we need to be challenged with these questions, to be bold in our vision, really almost be unshakable, because that's going to keep us going in the face of uncertain times externally. When we face doubt, when we face challenges, it's holding our resolve because we want to get to that place. Yeah, I have done some difficult things. I mean, for me, one of these things I like doing backpack camping is it's like you're committed. I've got my backpack, I've got my food. I've done this with my son. We have a local trail life troop, and it's like I really want to succeed and make it. Now, I may go slower, taking that hiking to get there, to get to the campsite. But to me, it's been, I've done this for a number of years recently, and that's stretched to me. And so I want to encourage you to find some space, whatever that is. Doesn't have to be running a marathon. Physical experiences, though, I do feel like that's a great way to test your mettle, test you, to push you a little bit. So take an opportunity to see what that would look like. How would you be better? Why do people make health choices, for example, in the food they eat? Because it's easier for us to grab a candy bar, right? To go get the fast food instead of drinking the water, eating the healthier food, the raw, unprocessed food. But that is going to help us be better overall. Now, I'm not above it, you guys. I struggle at times too, but can we make the better choices overall and build those habits so that way we can, have the resilience and not quit when the challenge comes in our relationships, in our marriage, in our workplace? How many of you have been in a place where you're at work and it's just like, man, I just want to quit. I want to give up. I want to leave. I want to go find another job. And if you stay, and this is, I'm not talking about toxic workplaces and in a very unhealthy places, but when there's just not working the way you want it to be, and you could get the breakthrough, you could lead by example. The gain mindset is about living on mission and staying focused on that. What's really important to you. And one of the things I do through Steward Your Business, I call it's a fact map process. It's like understanding your baseline. Go back and listen to that episode, understanding your baseline, if you haven't caught that. But it's getting clear about where you're at and where do you want to go. And I break it down into 4 main domains. Your business is certainly one. We talk a lot about that here on the podcast, but I talk about your relationships. Like I call it your balance. Also your spiritual walk, your being, and in your body. Those 4 domains, if you just take those 4, and you can break down many more from there, but if you just take those 4 and you're clear on, how do you want to show up in each one of those domains, I'm telling you, you're going to level up so much more quickly than most of the people in the world, because they're not being intentional and they're not showing up in a way that leads themselves. And that's what we're all about here on the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast, that you're encouraged, you're lifted up, that there's a way to go. And maybe you don't know how to describe it yet. You don't have a system or a process quite well, the way to do it. That's why I'm here. That's why I started Steward Your Business, to come alongside you, to provide you that support, to point you in a direction that works, that I know I've worked with, many, many men and women, in time-tested processes and systems and resources. So don't go it alone. Definitely reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. This shift from the gap to the gain are so important. Some practical things you can do here as we're getting close to the end of the podcast is, write a daily reflection about one thing you've gained today. I have my full focus planner, another tool that I have out here. Celebrate and track the micro wins. One of my colleagues, Thomas Roberts, fantastic man and videographer. Thomas, shout out to you. But we talk about micro wins, not just these big milestones, but how are you making these incremental wins? Revisit your purpose. Remind yourself of your why. If you're not clear on your purpose, whether it be in your business, your personal life, again, I have tools and resources I would love to share with you to help you along that journey. And don't go through things in silence. Invite others a part of your journey, a part of your story. I want to live a authentic, transparent life. That's why I share with you guys my challenges, my ups and downs, and what I'm learning along the way. So as we're wrapping up this podcast today, I want you to really look at where in life or leadership are you focused only on the gap? Is that your default way of thinking? For many people, it is. I definitely was that way. I could tell you many stories where I would be asked about certain things and I would look at the gap. I didn't achieve this. I didn't get there. And when I started to shift it, and I didn't know the word gain at the time, but when I shifted it to the gain, it increased my energy, helped me get focused, helped me get back in the game. Remember, you haven't failed if you just not finished. And this is an opportunity for you to pivot and keep going. We only fail when we give up, when we stop, and that's it. We can pivot and we can adjust, and you find a new way around the problem, around the challenge. We're on target, we're moving forward. I'm so grateful for you guys to be here on the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast, and why I come week after week. And sometimes the reality is I don't always get a response. I'd love to get more, but the reality is I'm not doing it for the response, for the likes or the comments, or although that's always wonderful to receive. I'm doing it because I called in my heart of hearts and to lift up others, to bring people together, to create a space that, number one, I'm blessed and I want to bless others. So I'm focusing on that gain, and I can leave the things behind that aren't serving me in that. The more that we develop that, the more we will be stronger, we will be more resilient in uncertain times where we find ourselves, maybe more than ever in life. You will be able to go the distance. Go back and listen to that podcast too, go the distance. But I wanted to encourage you today in this concept of overcoming the gap, focusing on the gain, and know that you're not alone. The Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast will remain. We are well into our second season here, having started in January 2024. I've got many more episodes and stories to share with you. It would be an honor to have you like and subscribe and share this podcast with others, and come back again next week. So I encourage you, focus on the gain this week, and I look forward to our next episode together. Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. I'm your humble host, David Carr, thanking you once again for listening. Until next time, take good care. Thanks, everyone.